All right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power, and now that we have an official competitor list, finally, for the New York Pro this weekend, I wanted to do kind of a preview video for the men's open bodybuilding portion of this show. Now, this New York Pro is going to be incredibly important to determining the future of the Olympia this year and who's going to be at the Olympia. This is a big moment for a lot of people trying to earn points and qualify, and there's a lot of big names in this lineup for that reason. So I wanted to go through this list, particularly some of the bigger names in this list, and look at some recent physique updates and talk about the guys that I think are going to be real threats to the top 6 and real threats to win the show. So I wanted to start out this video looking at ANTOINE VAILLANT. It's been a while since we've seen ANTOINE on stage. I believe the last time we saw him was back in 2018 at the 2018 Toronto Pro Show, where he wound up taking 4th in a pretty impressive lineup. Now, some of the strong points of Antoine's physique when he competed in 2018 was obviously number 1, conditioning. Number 2, his midsection. He had very separated abs. He had a small waist and a V-taper that was accentuated by the fact that he's got legs. He's got very good legs. He's got big legs that really enhance the look of his physique. But I would say the primary factor that makes Antoine a threat in this lineup is conditioning. He's proven that he can bring conditioning that is not your typical pro bodybuilding conditioning. Conditioning good enough to carry him with a physique that arguably the upper body might be a little bit smaller than some of the other open guys, but the conditioning carries him a long way, and that certainly makes him dangerous in a lineup of arguably, you could say maybe second-tier pros are in this lineup. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, but I mean to say like a top-tier pro, you would say probably the top 10 at the Olympia and maybe like the top 5 at the Arnold Classic. Those are like the top-tier pros. And then beneath that, you have guys that aren't top 10 at the Olympia, guys that aren't placing at the Arnold. And that is kind of what you're looking at here. There's no big Ramis or William Bonacks or Rolly Winklers in this lineup that are like a sure win at this show. There's a lot of guys that are on a very even playing field, and there's not necessarily a standout here. And if you look at Antoine's recent photos and videos, he looks like he's in really good shape, and it looks like that thing that makes him dangerous, the conditioning that he had in 2018, is something that he's going to have at this show based on the updates that we've seen so far. He looks like he's in incredibly good shape. So Antoine is definitely a name that stands out to me on this list. Now, another name that is an obvious standout is your runner-up from the Tampa Pro just maybe it was a few weeks ago, the Tampa Pro, Ian Valliere. Ian Valliere took 2nd to Hunter Labrada. Obviously not Ian's best package. A lot went wrong here. You could say it was conditioning. You could say it was a bad tan or a combination of things. And for lack of a better word, Ian kind of blew it at Tampa. Now, Ian is going to be looking to redeem himself at this New York Pro, so I don't expect to see the version of Ian that we saw in Tampa. I expect to see a much more conditioned, sharper, and on version of Ian in this New York Pro lineup because he wants to prove himself. He wants to get to the Olympia, and he knows that the New York Pro, let's face it, it's a higher caliber show than Tampa. The New York Pro has a lot more history and is a little bit elevated in terms of competition. You've got 20 guys in this lineup. It's a big show, and a lot of these guys are really good. And Ian, he hasn't posted as many recent physique updates, so you kind of got to go off of what we saw in Tampa for where his physique is at from a muscular standpoint. He does have one back shot on his Instagram page. Here, I'll pull it up. He posted this on August 9th. So obviously it looks like he's still holding on to some conditioning. He's got vascularity all throughout his back. I think definitely in his lower body from the back, he definitely needs tighter glutes, tighter hamstrings, more separation, and more definition in that area. It made him look a little bit soggy next to Hunter, who had very dialed-in glutes and hamstrings. Ian Valliere, not so much. So Ian, to me, he's in the conversation for top 3 possible winner of this show. He's got a lot to prove here, and I think he's going to come correct, and I think he's on a mission to change a lot of people's minds after that Tampa Pro showing. Now, next up, obviously one of the bigger names and standouts in this lineup is Patrick Moore. Now, the last time we saw Patrick Moore was at the 2020 Arnold Classic in Columbus, Ohio, where he wound up taking 10th. Now, going into that show, he had a lot of expectations on him to place higher, possibly top 6, top 3. A lot of people really like Patrick's physique, but for whatever reason, he missed the mark there. He looked flat. His conditioning was off. Whatever the case may be, he wasn't where we wanted him to be, and the judges agreed with that and put him in 10th at the Arnold Classic. Now, Patrick Moore in this lineup, I think, is similar to Ian. Patrick knows he's got all this hype, he's got all this expectation, and he knows that the Arnold was a major setback for that momentum. He's got something to prove, just like Ian at this New York Pro. I think Patrick waited. You know, he was thinking about doing Tampa, and he waited because he wanted to present a better package, the best package he could present. So he waited till New York. So I think what we're going to see from Patrick here is going to be better than what we saw at the Arnold. And I think Patrick is another guy that's in the conversation for top 3 or a possible winner of this year's New York Pro. Now, based on what we've seen from Patrick so far, the physique updates that he's put on Instagram, he looks like he's in pretty good shape so far. Obviously, it doesn't need to be said that Patrick has a much more aesthetic and flowing physique, more pleasing to look at than most men's open bodybuilders. Very small waist, very good V-taper. He can hit a vacuum pose. He's got good arms. He's got decent legs. His back would be really the only weak point that a lot of people talk about. I think Patrick is going to be super dangerous in this lineup. And this is going to be, I think the New York Pro is certainly going to be a show where conditioning is going to matter a lot because, again, I don't mean this as an insult, but a lot of these guys don't have the prettiest shapes. You talk about Ian and Antoine, they've got gnarly muscle, but they don't have the prettiest physiques to look at, so they're going to need grainy, gnarly muscle, conditioned, gnarly muscle. And if they don't, somebody with an aesthetic, pleasing physique like Patrick is going to come in with good conditioning and win this show. Now, another guy I want to talk about here is Dwayne Walker. Dwayne Walker, your third-place finisher at the Tampa Pro. So Dwayne Walker obviously was one of the favorites at this show. He really impressed a lot of people. He wasn't that well known going into the show, but a lot of people liked the polished look that he had, the conditioning that he had, the shape of his physique. He just looked really good. I mean, just to put it plainly, he was very impressive at the Tampa Pro. I think, you know, he really got a lot of people's attention with the package that he brought in Tampa. I would argue that he should have been second in Tampa just based on the overall look of his physique. He is a really talented newcomer, and I think he's definitely somebody that we need to look out for. And in this lineup, again, I don't know if he's a threat to win this show, but he's a top 6, possible top 3 guy in this show. I see him definitely, if he replicates the conditioning that he brought in Tampa or even tighter, he should be top 6 in this show, easily. I think it's possible that he got overlooked in Tampa, but now everyone knows who he is. They know he's got a good physique, and I think the judges are going to have their eye on him, and they're going to have him in the mix in these comparisons in New York. So Dwayne Walker, another top 6 threat. Now, next up, you got John De La Rosa. Now, John De La Rosa, he's been around for a while. You've seen him at the Olympia more than once. The last time we saw him at the Olympia was his 12th place finish at the 2019 Mr. Olympia, which he qualified for by winning the Puerto Rico Pro, I believe. So he's done it before. He's seasoned. He's been on the Olympia stage, which is something a lot of these guys can't say. A lot of the guys in this New York Pro lineup are not Olympians. So John De La Rosa is a guy that definitely needs to be considered for top 6. In my opinion, he's going to be in the top 3. He's a veteran bodybuilder. He's been on the biggest stage of them all. He's got second at the New York Pro before. In fact, he's done the New York Pro like a handful of times, maybe like 5 times. And I don't think he's been outside of the top 5. Maybe once he was, but I think he's been in the top 5 or top 2 almost every time he's done the New York Pro. I think one time he was like 8th or something like that. Maybe it was like 2016. But for the most part, he's got a really good track record in New York. He's done the Arnold Classic. He's done the Olympia. John De La Rosa is a seasoned veteran at this point. And I think against some of these guys, he's just got a much better physique. So look out for John De La Rosa. He's probably going to be top 3. And then you've got MAXX Charles. MAXX Charles, another guy that is a seasoned veteran. He's done the New York Pro several times as well. He's definitely competed more recently than some of these other guys. Been on the Olympia stage multiple times, been on the Arnold Classic stage multiple times, been on the New York Pro stage multiple times, and he's really dangerous when he comes in shape, so that's going to be the big question. Is MAXX Charles going to be in shape here? If he is, he's a top 6 guy. I don't know if with this lineup, he's a threat to win the show. His lower body has a lot of catching up to do with his upper body, which is extremely impressive. But if he's in shape, he's a top 6 guy. QUINTON ERIYA. Now, he's a relatively newcomer, and we haven't seen him compete as often. He hasn't proven himself as much. I don't think we've seen him on the Arnold stage. We haven't seen him on the Olympia stage. He's got more to prove here. So he's kind of my wild card for this show because I think he's got a great physique. But this is a deep lineup. This is a dangerous lineup. And there's a lot of guys that I'm not going to talk about in this video because there's 20 guys on this list, but I'm just talking about a couple guys that stand out. QUINTON stands out to me because I've seen his Instagram. I've seen his updates, but you've also got like Justin Rodriguez on here. He's a very good bodybuilder. Antonio Champagne is a very good bodybuilder. Dorian Haywood, a very seasoned bodybuilder. Matt Kuba, a very seasoned bodybuilder. I think he was in Tampa as well. And there's just a lot of names in this lineup. So my wild card for this show is QUINTON ERIYA, Quint Beastwood. He's a wild card top 6 guy for me. But overall, I cannot wait to watch this New York Pro. It's going to be a hell of a show. I can't wait to see it. Go buy the live stream or pre-order the live stream. It's going to be on the Bev's Gym website. You can pre-order it or you can watch it this weekend. I'm going to be buying it. You guys can watch it with me. We're all going to watch it live together. I'm happy to have bodybuilding back. I'm happy we're watching live streams. I'm happy shows are back. I'm happy we're talking about guys qualifying for the Olympia. I'm happy we're doing prediction videos. I'm happy we've got stacked lineups to talk about. I am excited and I cannot wait, and I know you guys are too. So that's going to wrap it up for the video today, guys. I hope you did, in fact, enjoy it. Please give it a thumbs up if you did enjoy it. Please subscribe to this channel if you have not subscribed yet already. And as always, Nick Strength and Power signing out.